Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast featuring real conversations with conscious objectors to the status quo. I'm your host, Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, PhD candidate Cai joins us for a conversation all about past life regression. Together we talk about awakening archetypes, fractals and the quantum dimension, and expanding beyond our minds. Okay, all of you listeners, if you have been tracking with me since day one on this podcast, you know that this is probably going to be a hard conversation for me, right? I am so literal, scientific, and yet 2 episodes ago, I have a conversation with Mandy about leaning into the spirituality, right? And asking for more of that. And then next thing you know, I'm recording with Cai, right? And here we are embarking on this conversation. And I think Cai and I talk about this, and it's important to always have an open mind, right? What I do know for certain is that we don't know everything about this life and this experience. That I can claim with certainty, that there is so much that we truly have no idea about and are still exploring, which I think leaves a lot of space for topics like past life. That being said, I do have some fears about the potential harm that the idea of past lives trauma could cause, right? If we are telling patients that there is something in their past life that they didn't have control over that now is still lingering with them, and you need to get more comfortable with your unconscious to be able to unlock, I could see how that could create a dependency on the psychoanalyst, the therapist, and also the potential for someone to always feel like there's something wrong with them that they just haven't been able to fully unlock yet and have to keep digging and digging and digging and digging and looking for. I mean, it's totally possible that we do have past lives, and maybe one day when I'm on my deathbed and I'm 80, I will say, yes, I have done enough work in this field to fully believe in it and to fully see that, yes, that is totally what is happening with all of us. But I have to be realistic and say that at least currently where I'm at, I do not believe in past lives. And Cai, I really appreciate you sitting with my Virgo brain and for inviting me to lean more into my intuition, which I think are all very valuable things to be building in. Like you said, practices that are important and can help us tune into the gifts that we have in our perception. And I mean, these are the very conversations I want to be having on this podcast, y'all. It's a challenging conversation that is absolutely deconstructing the status quo and putting out a whole new paradigm of understanding our lives. And so even if I don't believe in it, I think it's powerful to be having these conversations and bringing up new potentials to understand our experience. What I do know with my empirical and scientific brain is that we have done research with mice where we did classical conditioning to make them afraid of the cherry blossom smell. So that was just this first generation of mice. And then we bred the mice and had them have subsequent generations where they didn't undergo any of the classical conditioning that would produce the same fear to the cherry blossom smell. But what we found out is actually that up to 4 generations later, without any conditioning for the fear, the mice were still afraid of cherry blossoms. Okay, y'all, if that doesn't blow your mind, we gotta say this again. There can be literal fears that are passed down genetically for 4 generations in mice. We don't know how this shows up in humans, obviously, because the testing is not possible, right? So there's a multitude of different ways that this could be manifesting in our experience. So I do believe in the epigenetic experience that trauma and its literal effects can be passed down genetically, whether that means we had past lives or we fully lived, or it's this lingering running piece of our DNA if you've had trauma. That is up for debate, right? I still think there is a lot of room here to have conversations about what all of this means. And I so deeply appreciate Cai putting up with my Virgo brain, and I love that you called that out. I am still laughing about that because you were so spot on. I am a Virgo, and apparently it shows. I did not know, since I'm also skeptical about that. Jeez. Yeah, I tend to stay in the hard sciences, but I am doing my best to lean into the intuition and spirituality, y'all, and I hope all of you are equally as challenged and moved by today's conversation as I was. Y'all, tune in. Yeah, how's your day? How have you been?
Very well. I usually spend half of my week writing my dissertation, and the other half I see patients.
Cool.
So today was the writing day.
Yeah, I know that feeling. That's exactly what I was doing today too, so I feel that. What is your dissertation on?
Well, I'm studying to see if we can awake a potential archetype using past lives regression. And I'm using a fractal approach for that.
Okay. So I feel like there's a lot of things we're going to have to define and talk about here. So past life, archetypal regression, and then the last thing that you just said, the technique.
Archetypal potential.
Okay. Yes. I mean, yes. So all of these words, please, like, give me the definitions. What are these pieces?
The fractals and the fractals.
Okay.
So, past lives regression is a technique that probably started in the 20s, between 20s and 30s, with age regression. And with time, they were able to access, the practitioners' memories from before, intrauterine life. So that's when they start this has been happening for a long time, but it became part of research in that time in the West. So usually what I'm talking about is hypnotherapy. So hypnosis is the technique where the therapists take the patient to a very deep state of relaxation that I call a hypnotic state. When you go through guided meditation, it's the same state. And then from there, the patient starts to move through, I would call the field. That's where fractals, I will take you to the fractals model, but where the patients take to a place where she or he or they can access memories. They don't know where the memories are stored, but it's before, birth, because people, in many research, people can access the time that they were in a very young age in the uterus. So in this time, there was no brain formation, no nervous system. So the idea of storing memories in the brain, I'm assuming, right, is not true. And from past lives, the memories are stored in some place. And why is this important? Sometimes we bring trauma from other lives that are repeated in this lifetime. And so knowing that, you are able to break the cycle. So you become aware of the patterns, and then through therapy, patients and therapists get to a point where they find how they can explore these memories and change them. And of course, we move to another set of patterns, right?
Exactly. And yeah, awareness being that first step to bring about the changes. You first have to know what's going on, have that awareness, the coming out from the unconscious, right?
Yes. And some people call the unconscious, right? If you follow Jung school, so the memories could be there in the unconscious. It is in the personal unconscious, but I believe it's more than that. Maybe it comes from the collective as well. So if it comes from the collective, not just to the personal, because I think they are intertwined, then we can explore the field, right? The fractal field, the field of the quantum field, the 0 point.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming that there is no empty space, that everything is information, we could be storing memories, information in the field. And that's something that some people disagree and say this is, yes, pardon my French.
Sure. I'm here, yeah. You can curse.
People, it's very controversial, it's very polemical, but at the same time, it may be the truth. So if you go back and you are able to access through hypnosis these memories, then you can start, restoring, healing in the self. And it's a way to integrate, right? The soul. So because if you think about complex, right, and they are created by trauma, and if you bring trauma from past lives, then we are talking about the integration of complex that Jung was very critical about that. I mean, very important, critical in a way. So we are always becoming aware of our complex and what has been creating them and what kind of dynamics create them. So then when it's time and we are ready, we are able to access and change. The fractals model come with fractals are repetitive images. Mandelbrot in 1978, a quantum physicist, developed, he developed the equation before, but he was able to demonstrate, because of the computer development, the images that came in repetitions. So before that, the model was to use the Platonic solids. With his new way of seeing life, he came with the fractal idea. So we could measure nature in a very different way, because nature doesn't bring, they have patterns, but they are not really solid shapes. They don't come in solid shapes or, very geometrical shapes. If you look at the trees, right, the branches, they repeated themselves is a fractal, as well as the roots, but they don't have like solid shapes, geometrical shapes. So the way to measure them is through fractals, and their equation produces the image and then has a feedback loop and reproduces itself and generates itself in smaller and smaller dimensions. With that, you see when you are looking at the picture, I believe that you can also go to a hypnotic state, but when you are looking at the, at the pictures that are computer or in nature, the shapes, they keep reproducing themselves in smaller and smaller shapes. Same thing happens with past lives. When you use the fractal model, what happens? You see the repetition of the same patterns again and again, intra-lifetime. This is like a terminology that I'm using, right? Intra-lifetime. So from one life to another, it's not sequential, but it happens again and again. When that's a way to, I believe, to integrate complex. So when some professors, authors, they talk about the potential. My professor, Dr. Corbett, he in his book, in one of his books, actually in more than one, he talks about the potential archetype. And he defines it as archetypes. So they come in the plural, right? They never come up alone. So, and we are born with them. If we are born with these archetypes, with the social pressure, exposure, parenting, race, and all the other components of, influence that we receive since we are like very small, we are able to develop these archetypes. But I believe that some of them are not developed because of trauma, but not just from this lifetime, from other lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we explore through hypnotherapy our patterns, we become more aware of the changes that are necessary. And with the changes, we create space to explore potential qualities
Mm-hmm.
that we brought with us, but we didn't have access. It's almost like we block them. That's the idea.
Very fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I mean, there are so many layers to that. I'm sure it has been just fun to dive into all of the literature. And yeah, I have so many questions. So I think a lot of this conversation might also be very hard for someone who doesn't understand like psychodynamic theory. Like some of the ideas we're talking about, we have to like slow down enough to like describe them so that people can like follow with us. Because one of the first things you were talking about is the collective unconscious. Like even that idea, many people will not even know what that means. So could you take a little bit of time to describe even that idea?
Yes. The collective unconscious came with Jung. Carl Jung was born 30 years later than Freud, but he was contemporary of Freud, and they had a friendship for some time, and then because of many problems at the time, they kind of move away from each other. And Jung, at the time, he was around 30 years old when he started developing the ideas of the collective unconscious, that he said it's where the archetypes are. So the collective unconscious are primordial behaviors, primordial patterns of behavior that came with humanity and has been repeating through mythology, through histories. So if we think about the mother, the father, the child, they are all archetypes that live in the unconscious, and they are present in all societies, in all places, all countries, and they have a very descriptive way of behaving and feeling, because I don't think just behavior, I think comes with feelings and emotions, right?
Sure.
And they have positive and negative characteristics, but they are not entities or spirits or beings. They are just patterns, but they bring energy with them. So when Dr. Downing used to say, one of her books, The Goddess, she talks about when the archetype is living in the self, is living in me. So it becomes parts, it's so intense as a mother. When the archetype mother comes, it's so intense that you are not more yourself, you're just the mother. Let's say the mother is protecting the child, right? So the archetype child is there, present as a child, and the mother is there to protect. And so intense that the person, the woman, disappeared, and there is just the archetype. And what the archetypes do, they bring the complex, the personal complex that we all carry. And they are not bad or good, they are just us. And there are many of them. Today, people are talking about the shadow. They talk about the persona. Anima and animus are like very old, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Female,
it's more
male. Yeah.
Yes. So there is umbrella. But at the time, it was the language for Jung. But that's what they are. I mean, what's the unconscious? And in the unconscious, we find many patterns. So the unconscious, I believe, is also fractal. My professor, my chair, doesn't agree with me, but
Yeah, when you were talking about the archetypes, I was thinking maybe a way to explain it. And I am not Jungian, right? So I'm more like humanistic existential in terms of my lens. So this might not meet the definition fully, so correct me. But I was thinking about the idea of like archetypes kind of as the different characters that we kind of see throughout the stories of our human experience, the different roles that people can play, right? And so like when you start to like find yourself on the hero's journey, it's almost comes with a narrative and a type of persona, a person that you'd live up to be, right? Like the hero would do this, the hero would be brave here, the hero does that. And in that, how like we start to like have that narrative identity and then match our actions to fit that, and then therefore create a personality and experience, was kind of how I understand the archetypes to be, and maybe an explanation that is a little bit like less Jungian, more like narrative therapy in some ways, you know?
And it's important to be aware that the archetypes don't come alone. So there is always a dynamic. So what creates even the actions and reactions are like relational, right? There is always an exchange, not just with one or two, but with many, because I believe we are part of the collective, right? We influence each other with everything that we do, with the things that we buy, the words that we say, with our beliefs, and we are always exchanging ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, we are a social creature species. Like, of course, like we are just always shifting in this milieu of whatever is going on in the culture that all affects us. And the unconscious then, and being the collective, my understanding when I took my brief intro to psychodynamic theory class was talking about how you can connect to things in the collective unconscious that aren't yours. That being like memories, like you kind of mentioned. So like, is it this like connection, I guess, is this the question where the quantum field comes in, like this connection to like a shared space where like we have access to other people's experiences and memories?
And I would say yes. People don't define. If you are Jungian therapists, they don't like to talk about the field very much, but they don't. I believe, because I'm not just Jungian, I'm more, so I'm not a Jungian analyst, but my school, Pacifica, brings a lot of Jungian theory. But I think we all access in moments of our lives the field that contains the information of everybody's lives. And we let's think about the experiment. There is a book called The Experiment. It's a very interesting book. Meg Tarter, I think that's her name, but I'm not sure. So she is a reporter and she writes about this experience research. And in one of them, they had 100 people meditating for a month in a very violent city. So before that, they measured the crime rates for like a year. During the experiment, they had 100 people meditating there for, I'm not sure, an hour a day for 30 days, and meditating in bringing peace to the space. And they measured that the crime reduced in 20%. So if this is, and they repeat the experience again and again. So if we are able to collaborate through meditation actions and whatever we do to increase peace, decrease violence and other things, think what we can do. And I think this all happens in the field. With the non-local, they call about non-locality, experiments. You don't need to be close to someone to influence this person. Of course, knowing the person connects you to the person quickly, but you don't need to be present. Even with past lives regression, you can do online. It's better that you have someone doing with you. Some people can do by themselves, but it's not the same. I believe the practitioner creates a container that keeps the space activated.
Sure. Yeah, to facilitate that. Yeah, of course. I think I'm so curious too, when the study you're talking about the decrease in the level of peace, like I have to wonder like what other variables could have potentially explained that. Like that, for me, it like doesn't do enough to make me feel secure in the idea of the collective unconscious. Not that I don't want to write it off And I do think it's interesting that I know when we are creating psychological assessments and other tools like that, at a certain point, people tend to learn the answers and they can't really explain why after the test has been out for a couple of years, people start to seem to like accurately know more than they did at one point, which might point to this idea of a collective unconscious. And I've always wondered that, like, yeah, the more something's out, do we somehow inadvertently connect and somehow download that information in some way that does translate to like our various tests being out of date because of that, which is fascinating. I just want more grounding in this like potential.
Well, there is another book that's called The Water Code. There are many books with many experience in this area, and I agree with you. There are many variables that may influence the outcomes, right? But the water code, this guy, researcher, is a PhD, and he talks about how we can influence. Well, a Japanese professor in the 60s did a lot of research with water, and he could measure how through the microscope, how the molecules change accordingly with what you say. So if he had a group, many experiments, but a group of people saying love and compassion, and the molecules changing shape, water shape, and they become beautifully arranged, organized. Another group was like saying words of hate and other things. The molecules become very unorganized and very strangely designed, not in a balanced way, and I mean very strangely. So they lost their ability to get connected. So in these designs, if we can do this with water, that's using all many, well, our bodies are made of water, right? 97%. So if we can do this with water, imagine what we can do with our thoughts and the vibration of them. But yes, I can agree with you that,
Yeah. And
vibes.
Right. Yeah. And I'm so curious with the water, was it like a change on the actual shape of it, or was it a change on the chemical structure of water?
No. It's still water, but it was the shape.
So, okay. So the actual shapes went from, you said,
like stars, like beautiful little, the shape changed when he was looking at the microscope, and you see the pictures on the book from the microscope. And some very organized, harmonic, in balance, and others like very disorganized.
Interesting. Yeah. What does disorganized like mean in terms of water?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah, but sometimes actually about coming back to fractals, King Smith talking about ontology, what's true for us, right? What we believe. Yeah. He talks about fractal ontology in the political engagement. And he used the phrase of becoming other. He talks about creating a territorial approximation where both participants collaborate in the process of ideas. However, he says that fractal ontology may be a way to bring organization to chaos, but he doesn't know if organizing things are a good way of promoting changes. If you think about when you organize too much, you don't bring a lot of collaboration because become homogeneous. Yeah. And in this way, and we are not homogeneous people, right?
Right. Not even close. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's an interesting question as well, to study that connection. I mean, I think for me, like once I learned about quantum mechanics, right, and the idea that like just our ability to be watching an atom changes its action and where it lands up versus when we're not watching it, and that alone has caused me to think that we don't know a drop of what our existence is if just our ability to watch something changes how we interact with the atom. I mean, like, I don't think people realize how much maybe is a system where we are interacting with other things on a level that we just truly don't see or currently understand.
Yeah. as the observers, yeah. But I think it's not just the observer. When in my dissertation, I'm writing about fractal ontology. I believe that the experience, so it's not just the observer, but the observer experiencer is the connection. Because when you observe, okay, you may be participating in the experience, right? Changing the outcomes or providing the outcomes. But as an experiencer, you are part of the experience.
Sure.
So then it goes beyond the just watching, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what's missing. And that's where we are going one day with the quantum physics, because still we can't participate, can really collaborate in that way, just observing.
Right, exactly. So, because there is no thing as just observing, because the observing in and of itself affects the dynamics. Yes, 100%. So like, could we ever know without being an observer of that piece? I mean, currently, I don't think we have the science to understand how to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does bring up a lot of different things in terms of the interactions. You were saying that we can affect people even though we're not close to them. Could you say more to that and like what that means?
Yes. Actually, I was thinking about your cat.
Sure, yeah, tell me more.
And how animals kind of sense things. And sometimes, of course, they can hear better than us, cats and dogs, right? And horse, but they sense more than that. So cats, sometimes they know that something is going to happen before we have the awareness, right? So I think, and horses, they can feel 10 times more the field before we do. When we feel that something is like weird or something, it's like there is a almost like something in our guts, maybe the third chakra, that kind of tell you that something. The horses are able to react much before, and it's not an auditory thing. So if we have this or develop the idea of sensing the others, and I would say maybe expanding our consciousness, then we can influence others more. But it's a practice. I don't believe that just knowing is enough. It's like meditation. Do you meditate?
Yes, I do. I teach yoga. Yes. So yes.
So meditation is a practice and takes a while to be able to clear the mind, right? So the same thing is the access to the field or to the others that are around us and the others that we influence. We influence not just with our words or with our body language. I think there is more. Like the dog, the cat, the horse, they all sense in a way. If you put your hands on a horse, horse therapy, and we feel, and it's very strange. I had an experience with a horse, and the horse could feel me. And it's not like, and it's not just me, a lot of people, and we knew, it's not like, we are influenced by something that someone said. And it's strangely, because I said, I just want to play. I said before, just want to play with the horse, and the horse started playing. And the owner said, I never saw this horse doing that.
That's so cool. I love that connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the stuff go ahead.
No, I want to ask you if this is what you asked me, if I answer your question.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just, I am just trying to grasp and learn at this, because I'm such a, I don't know, materialist to some degree. I don't even know what right word to use, because part of me is like, yes, I see that moment where you're in that scenario and suddenly you just feel that the energy is wrong. And there's something about that. And you just kind of sense that gut feeling, right? But then the other half of me is like, yeah, but that is the culmination of body language, pheromones, facial, and all the other sorts of pieces. So I'm constantly grappling with that, like that idea that it is connected on this deeper, like, other plane level, and this idea that it is literally the culmination of all those things happening all at once, like could we ever create a scenario where someone, you know, doesn't have access to the sense of like sight and smell and all these other pieces that might actually be affecting us on a level we don't know, to even test that variable? It's so, we'll never know.
No, while we are alive in the physical body, we
Yeah.
will be influenced by all this.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think there are moments doing exercises like meditation, guided
Yeah.
meditation, qigong, many other practices that you can achieve a state of awareness that you are able to see more and expand. And I think practicing, not just meditation, but going beyond the mind, expanding. I like to say expanding because that's how I see. You become more and more aware that there is more. So yes, the materialistic influence still strong in our society, but it's changing. I believe it has been changing.
Absolutely. I remember Manny, who also goes to Pacifica, had talked about the experience of a meditation where they remembered images from their family, messages from their family in that moment. And we had an interesting conversation about that too, because like, so you're telling me this, like, how can I do this in my own practice as someone who has aphantasia? So when I meditate, I can't visualize anything. It's completely black. So I don't ever have any visual memories at all. I don't see any of my own past even memories. It's just all black. So like when I'm meditating, how would I ever be able to tell any sort of difference between my own experiences and something else when I can't see anything?
That's a good question. I think visualization,
right?
It's not just imagery. Well, I think it starts with visualizing. If you are able, even if it's like a circle, and you visualize the circle like red.
I can't do that. It's so black. Like, I kid you not, I can't visualize a circle. Like, it's like being in a black closet. Like, I close my eyes, and as much as I've tried, even on psychedelics, to visualize, I cannot. Yeah.
Can you sense?
In what? I mean,
like sense in a way that expand. It's not just sense. It's not just like use the five senses. Can you feel more than what it is happening in the body? Like something's not right, or now I need to change my direction, because we have different gifts, and some people can hear extra things like music and other things. It's not a psychotic break.
Sure.
Some people are having, have this psychotic break, so we have to be aware of that. But some people can see it, and some people can sense, because I think the sense then is about, believing, but it goes to the third eye. So you're not really seeing with these eyes.
Sure.
You're seeing with, something else, the sixth eye.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I always felt like I've always been able to feel people's energy, very much so. I felt always very spongy, where like I'm just picking up on someone's energy in all the complex ways of like, maybe facial expressions and other sorts of pieces, but also a felt sense that translate in my body, which I always understood to be like the mirror neurons of like how when we see another person, our body mirrors the neurons and we have that same experience.
But maybe if you start with that, because that's what you can do. Because I do a lot of exercise, with my patients. So some of them cannot see it. I do guided meditation because I think it's better than meditation. Sure. When you guide someone, you go through a journey, right? But some of them can, they just feel it. And they say, I feel like I'm flying. And now I'm moving, and I feel there is a being close to me. Let's say that's the thing. It's not just about that. Past lives is not about that. Sure. But but they tell there's someone moving me. So they are sensing. Can you see sometimes some lights and blue, purple, but I don't see one, but I feel it. So maybe that's the way to expand
Mm.
your experience. And then from there, maybe that's when you are going to start seeing more. I don't know.
I wish. Oh my God, if it was that easy. I mean, the amount of time though I do spend doing that, like, right, tripping, having psychedelic experiences where I do just try to connect to my feeling. Like, if, oh man, I wish that was the answer, that I could just turn it on like that. I think I'd live a whole different life, honestly. I'm thankful for my brain and the beautiful ways that it is. So yeah, that's so tricky. I think so then the person like me who doesn't have visual memories, right, maybe feels that, say I feel anything, right? Like, how does one know that that felt experience is from a past life, from the collective unconscious, slash something from my own experience, slash, like, we also know that people can create memories. That is something we know in psychology as well, where, like, just the creation of a memory, we can start to believe that over time. So, like, how does one differentiate between all of these pieces to know?
That's a good question, because some people ask me and say, Kai, do you think maybe that's me creating all these stories, right? But you feel it. Well, in my case, when I go back, I see it. So I am in the movie. I'm not watching. I am there, and I know but it doesn't happen like I'm watching TV or a movie. I'm there, and it's like flashes, very subtle, and you have to be there but at the time that you doubt yourself, the things just disappear. That I think we block, and that's the thing. You have to allow yourself to be there. Don't criticize. You can do that later, but let the experience happen, and maybe you know. And I think a good explanation is Sabine Lucas. She talks about, she's a Jungian analyst, but also a regressionist. And there is a book, beautiful, written by her, actually. That's the book, Regression Therapy, a handbook for professionals. That's her. Yeah. So she talks about dreams. She does a lot of works with dreams, but dreams in past lives. So she said there are three basically dreams related to past lives, not the regular dreams. One is when you dream, you just start dreaming and you know that about your past lives. The information comes through you and you know. It's like, I know, I don't know how to explain that. It's got like near-death experience, but a little different, because in near-death experience, people see their bodies, right? They are not there, but they are seeing everything that's happening, usually. So in this case, you know. The second case, you have someone there, a friend, someone tell you, a guide, tell you about your past lives. And you are there in the past life scene. Not just one scene, usually it's one past life. The third one is when you bring symbols, experience from the real life, this present life, and also memories. And that's the most common dream with past lives. So it's hard to tell what's happening. But the thing is the feeling that you have. It's not like, oh, I wake up, it's just a regular dream. You have a feeling that something is very intense or that happened before, and you know that's like in your heart or in your fourth chakra, you know that something happened. It's a knowing. It's like knowing that you are alive.
Sure.
But no, it's not just memories.
Right.
Created by fantasy.
Right. Yeah, so it's like, so it could be a dream of you living the past life, you said, a dream of a friend showing it to you, or then a dream of like the present with symbols, so present day, your lived experience and symbols. But then like at that point, it's like any dream could be it, right? Because so then every dream could be it at that point, because no matter what, we always have that back option of like your current experience and dream symbols are like a reflection to the past life.
It could be. But I believe, she says actually that it's not very common to have dreams with past lives.
Okay.
And it usually happens when you are in a critical moment of your life. So I believe, and actually I had a dream.
Ooh, tell me about this. Yeah, tell me.
When I was writing about dreams and past lives in my previous chapter, I had a dream. And I didn't think about that, right? Of course, I was going to have a dream. And I had a dream that I don't remember, but I knew that I had to remember the information that they're like giving to me. Then I woke up and said, okay, I need to dream again because I need to know what the information was. So, and I woke up just with a sentence. When when your personal unconscious become comfortable and the time is coming for you, the personal unconscious will release informations from your past lives through dreams. I think, but I didn't think about what I said to you before because it is in her book and then what came to. But if it's a critical moment, in my case, yes, because I'm writing about that for many years, right? And I have experience, I have been doing this for some time. And so it is a critical moment. So I'm experiencing. So if someone is in a time that they need to decide about something, a job, a relationship, some traumatic thing, it may come through a dream to help the one, to help the self.
Sure.
I think I always have, they say, oh, this is very, maybe sometimes it's believing too much in the positive things of life, but I think it's always helpful.
Yeah.
And it's good to bring to therapy so you can process with your therapist.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the meaning that we make of anything is so incredibly important, right? And like, whether you say it's from a past life or it's not, like the meaning that you make from that experience will move you forward. I think sometimes that's how I also look at like other pieces of like tarot and other things too. It's like, what meaning can I make of this, which then actually does direct how I act and show up in the world. So even for all the skeptics, right? Like there's always that piece of grounding of like the meaning making. I think I'm curious too, like it's at critical moments when you need to hear it, right? It comes through, it's that sort of piece. And I think you had also said when you're comfortable with your unconscious, like it will come through. As someone who's never maybe at least to date experienced a moment like this, what sort of things do I need to be doing to get more comfortable with my unconscious then so that it can have this moment?
That's it's a very good question. Meditation. It's one of them. Yoga, but not the fast-paced yoga. I'm a yoga instructor and I don't like to teach. I don't teach yoga now, but I use the knowledge to do what I do, the breathing and other things, and provide to others. But it needs to be something very gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Don't judge yourself. Believe in what you are doing. Choose what's right for you and practice. Without practicing, we don't develop anything. It's like riding a bike, playing, soccer, whatever it is, you need to play an instrument. So another thing that I believe that any kind of healing modality helps you. Reiki, even massage therapy and acupuncture. Actually, I had an experience in acupuncture, first time that I did. I just saw like a beautiful tree, like in a psychedelic experience, but wasn't.
Sure, that's so cool, yeah.
And the tree was like having water coming from inside the tree, like, and the tree of life, right? If you think. And I'm like, oh, and that's what it is. It is the vital energy, right? That we are like really rebalancing during these moments. So exercise is a good thing, but not too much, But all these other modalities help you to explore and expand the gift of going beyond the self. Basically, I think what it is. Right? And believing.
Yes, because that's the openness piece of it. In like meditation, are there any specific things you'd recommend? I mean, is it quieting your mind to try and just like feel into that connection, or what sort of pieces do you use to facilitate someone doing that if it's not imagery? So I am thinking for myself, right? Like I'm sitting there, what sort of things do I need to do to connect?
The breath, the work with, the breath, and really moving with the breath and going inside, but feeling it. In your case, feeling it. Breathing in and breathing out and feeling the expansion of the energy. Mm-hmm. So you go to that point of balance, then you start working with the breath, and then you start moving more and more and expanding, feeling it. You don't need necessarily to see it. Mm-hmm. Another work with the chakras. If someone goes to the, believing that work, and you don't need to see, but you can visualize. Not to look, visualize doesn't mean pictures.
Right.
Feel the energy. Each one of the chakras and feeling them rotating clockwise and expand, and each one of them until you go to this one that faces up. Mm-hmm. That's another way to do it. Jing Kong, dancing sometimes.
Sure.
Right? You can. I think it's moving the body in a way, or not moving, could be stillness, but moving. I love moving in the way that you feel the energy around you. And if you are more feeling than seeing, maybe you need to move the chi.
Okay. Then my homework assignments are to spend, it sounds like, more time visualizing my connection and believing in the connection and sitting in that, and also trying to dance into a felt sense.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, hey, go ahead.
And it's important to focus on the water when you're dancing element, because it moves, right? And it's related to your second chakra.
Okay.
So you can, right? Is the creative self, and you can move the energy side to side.
Ooh, very fun.
Without judging yourself.
Sure.
And don't try to analyze everything. I think it's important. The left side of the brain is very important. But I think when you go there too often, and some signs go there very often, they don't let the other side. Are you Virgo?
Yeah. Stop. I feel called out. Yes, I am a Virgo. So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. That's how you develop psychic. Exploring intuition.
Yeah.
And how do you do it? Sometimes you can do with symbols, but not imagining. Looking at. You watch a movie, music comes on, when you are driving or something else, and then you put things together.
Sure.
There are many ways to explore it.
Yeah, I mean, I have been seeing beetles around. I don't know much. Isn't that like New Life or something?
Yeah, the beetles is the symbol of Egypt. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to look at the dictionary of symbols and look what they like, huge 10 pages.
I know.
They are coming.
It's time to explore.
And by the way, usually they don't believe, Virgos don't believe in a lot of things, but they have a very intuitive side.
Yeah. Yes. That's probably pretty accurate in the last 50 minutes of how I've looked at this, right? It was like, I feel into it, but I'm skeptical. So I think you described me very, very well. Yes, that's funny.
But there is a reason for you to come, to be in this body, there is a reason. Maybe it's to access what you need to access now. Maybe you had to have a very scientific, rational mind to now move towards and move to the other side.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I think about very honestly a lot. So like when I say it's a homework assignment, I'm definitely going to like feel into it, because I think sometimes there have been times where I've had very strong gut reactions to things that have tried to go me one way, like lead me one way or another, and I didn't listen to them. And they've come back to me multiple times. So I'm trying to, lean more into that felt sense when it tells me something and trusting that. It's one of my goals. Seriously.
Trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Because usually, we question too much. And tarot cards, working with tarot decks really helps. With time, you look at it, it's impossible. Why,
Sure.
And sometimes you pull something for yourself, and then 3 months later, you decide to ask the same question, and the same card comes.
Oof.
What's the probability?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, damn it, stop hitting me with this knowledge. Yeah. Well, this has been so lovely. I want to hold some space as we come to the end of our conversation. Is there anything that maybe you wanted to talk about that we didn't hit on?
Yes, I think don't be, this message is not for you, but, for people that are going to listen this podcast, not to be too critical about certain things that you don't understand. I heard someone say once, thinking about having 2 lives or 3, it's more impossible than having just 1 life. What's the difference? When we we only have this life. This is the only life. So if you think, if you have 3 lives or 10, what's the difference in terms of understanding life? And sometimes no, we don't have the time to learn everything in this lifetime. So what's the purpose, the meaning, right? Even when you don't understand or don't believe, maybe exploring meaning in life may be the way.
Absolutely.
Right? To promote changes and to live a better life. So,
Yes. I think it's always better when we leave a little bit of space for the openness to be surprised, and we know that we don't know everything about this existence. So I think it's always probably the wisest thing to do is leave a ton of space for the unknown.
Yeah.
Well, then I have one closing question that I ask everyone on the podcast. And that question is, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
There is a book, many books, but there is one that talks explores the anomalous phenomena.
Okay.
That's all the psychic phenomena that happens in the world, including past lives, if you think about that. So anything that near-death experience, seeing spirits, clairvoyance, and work with energy, healing the self, and exploring past lives. All the things are much more normal than what we think, and that's what I wish should be like a common ground for all of us.
Absolutely.
And why we're like debating and not really opening the space for that, we can't access. And we cannot really heal the planet, because I think they are interconnected. This is not just, while you keep just the material thoughts about life, just one perspective, will be like, wasting or destroying this beautiful planet that we live in. As soon as we open the space for things that go beyond the body, then will be the time, the anomalous phenomena, then will be the time that we understand that there is much more. Life is much more than just this little, structure in our little bodies, that we live in.
Right.
And I'm extend to the idea of the universe, not just one, but many. So
absolutely, yeah, and that way we can have more collective healing.
Without, the collective healing. Without each other, we can't change.
Absolutely.
What's happening? We need all involved.
Yeah, so keep that open mind, right? Exactly. Yes. Well, this has been so lovely. Thank you for entertaining my Virgo mind and all of my questions. You did.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It was delightful.
Yes. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, then leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a part of the anarchist community, then follow us on Instagram or nominate a guest for the show by sending in a letter to modernanarchypodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.